What is going on, everybody? This is Mike from The Last Corvette. Happy Monday. I saw there was some interest on Instagram when it comes to my audio video setup on my C6, especially the cameras. I got a rear backup camera installed and also a front facing camera. Now, I use the front facing camera for parking, especially in my garage because I have a lot of crap, but you can use it as a daily tool if you're driving it and you're worried about, running into a curb or a parking block or something like that, or a car for that matter. So let me explain something to you. My head unit is a very base 1500 NEX made by Pioneer. Head units are defined from base to top of the line, but a couple of things. A, navigation. If you have built-in nav in either a Pioneer or Kenwood or Alpine or whatever, it will cost more money. When I was looking at a head unit to upgrade my stock old school GM head unit found in the C6, I don't need a dedicated nav. Now, most of these vehicles, like even the Silverado, unless you get the higher trim packages, your nav will only work when your cell phone is plugged in. Okay, I'm fine with that because I always have my phone. All of our phones are smartphones, and why would I waste the extra couple of hundred, sometimes even $300? Now, the second one is added and dedicated audio and video inputs, specifically your camera inputs. Now, I'll explain why a little bit later on, but you can buy a model like mine, a 1500 NEX. It only has one dedicated camera input, and of course I use that one for my reverse camera. It's triggered through my BCM, so when I put in reverse, it works like stock, like it would if you were driving this vehicle, a newer vehicle. You throw in reverse, the camera is triggered, and it's displayed on the Pioneer head unit. Now, my front camera, since I only have one dedicated camera input, my front camera is actually triggered by my auxiliary video input. So I have to go and manually select my video input, and the front camera comes on. If I had two dedicated camera inputs, that transition would be quicker and it would be more seamless. So let me explain. Back in the day when we started to see audio video inputs, people putting PlayStations in, DVD players, old school stuff, cameras. All was required by manufacturers is to provide one wire, either a ground, which was found like 80% of the time, or sometimes a positive wire. So you could just feed it basically 12 volts or ground it at all times, and it would automatically think that you were on the e-brake or you were on the brake, and you would be good to go. Well, things change. Now, for you to actually trigger a auxiliary input, you need a module, which is like 20 bucks. And what that does, it actually throws a short signal to, like, it's a 0.3 of a second signal. It basically goes on, off, okay? And then it ends and on. And what that does, it basically says, hey, this vehicle is in park, or this vehicle has an e-brake. Otherwise, what you would have to do if you had a one dedicated camera input and one auxiliary input, like in my case, I would have to pull my e-brake in a certain sequence 3 times and then end my e-brake in an up position while I was driving. Well, that wouldn't be so, ideal, because I would lock up my rear tires. Some people do a switch bypass. You can just buy a regular toggle switch. You can do the same thing, on, off, on, right? But why do that? Well, you can actually splice in a little module. Basically, it's a little relay, and it does the same thing. You feed it power, and then it controls your signal going to the input. And what that does is enables you to turn on whatever you want, a front camera, a rear camera, a side camera, your Xbox, while you're driving. Now, I don't recommend watching movies or playing video games while you're driving, but a camera is something that is very useful. You see it in all new cars. You see multiple cameras, a 360 camera setup on your higher trims. So it's very, very, very easy to do. In most cases, for a C6 anyway, you would need to buy a head unit, figure out which one you want, which one fits your budget. Then you would have to get a dash kit, a wiring harness kit, obviously adapter if you need it. If you do go with a one dedicated camera input and you want to add another camera, or I've seen where you have two dedicated cameras, and when you have two dedicated camera inputs, you can actually go in and toggle either your front or rear camera right on the touchscreen and say instant. If you want to add a third camera, right, somewhere like, let's say it's a pickup truck and you want to add a specific camera just for your fifth wheel, you can do that the same way I'm doing it for my front camera through auxiliary input. So the sky is the limit there. And you could also have multiple cameras connected to the same input, as long as you can trigger them at the right times. Don't have them on at the same time, because then everything is going to be confused and you're not going to get much information on your head unit. So that's really it in a nutshell. Now, of course, the planning of how you install your cameras goes into, stages. So for me, the rear camera that I installed on my C6, I have videos on YouTube, Last Corvette. I have videos on TikTok, Chevy Power, CHEV, PWR abbreviated. And I show you guys exactly the camera that I got, where I mounted the camera. If you walked up to my C6 without knowing, you would 110%, even though we'll just say 100%, think that it was an OEM camera setup. There is no added holes drilled into the bumper. It's part of the car, and it's also flush mounted. I completely hate people when they go for, a license plate backup camera install. A little license plate, basically cover that has a camera in the middle. It looks like shit, especially on nice cars. Same thing with cameras that are not stealth, like a rear camera that sticks out and it has a little metal bracket. Sometimes you even see it on OEM vehicles, but I think it looks ugly. So this one is a flush mount with a base, and it looks great. Now my front camera is a flush mount camera that is also installed without any screws. Okay, so the front camera you can barely see. It's dead center of the rear air dam, or the front air dam, and I'm using actually double-sided 3M tape to hold it in place. Just a tiny, you can't even see it, but it's there, and also it's reversible. If I ever wanted to remove it, I could peel it off, use some goof off, and you would never know it was there. But routing your wires, planning on how you're going to install your cameras is key. And for me, I always wanted to make the vehicle look like it came with those cameras from GM. And of course, that was, about a generation, well, actually 2 generations ago. C7 started, coming out with the backup camera and all the, we'll call it creature comforts. And then by the time C8 came out, obviously it has all the goodies in it, right, that you see today, almost like a standard type safety option or a package. But once again, if you guys have a question, if you guys need to know where I got the cameras, or how I routed the wires, or how I made basically drill-free install, go ahead and comment. I can explain. I can walk you guys through it. It doesn't have to be a C6. It can be any vehicle. But the key is you need to do it clean. You need to do it as close to OEM spec as possible. And not only will it look good, but it will also perform sometimes even better than OEM. Talk to you guys later.